The culture cancer, unbelievable. Opened the club in 1980. The name of the club was called Spunky's. Spunky's for the fun of it. Very, very important. And then for the first 8 or 9 years, it reflected a core and a time within society, because it was during a time when it was about fun. And so having one doorman that greeted hundreds of people, actually thousands, there have been some nights that I have as many as 1,200 that would come through the club. And this was during the disco era. This was during a time that it was fun. And it was also a very classy, upscale club that had values, that had morals, and people came out. And to begin to see attitudes and behavior change was, man, it was frightening, it was shocking, it was unbelievable. To go from one doorman to 14 security, to go to 14 security on the inside and 4 on the outside, it began to affect me psychologically. I also began to become stressed and paranoid. I also began to carry a gun. I also began to have guns around my home that I never had before. And so this corpse of cancer was beginning to affect me personally. I had a family, and man, to experience this. And so I began to ask myself, why and how is this happening? And then to look at what I thought the mechanisms within society that was beginning to cause this. I sat back and I began to ask myself why and what is doing this. And being realistic, that it was probably in 1986, 87 that we began to see an influx of crack cocaine within the urban community. But also what happened, and also in 1987, was NWA beginning a tour. And tour, also the influx and the not only the influx, but the, and I'm going to say this, and this is again my own personal opinion, was BET. BET was supposed to be black education television, but it became black entertainment television. And to me, that was the most devastating cultural mechanism that ever affected a community, that ever affected a people, because I began to see the effects of that mechanism on us as a community. I began to see that programming, that type of programming that came on at 3 o'clock, that was reprogrammed again at 8 o'clock, that was reprogrammed again at 11 o'clock, at 3 o'clock in the morning, that programming of gangster rap, that programming of the message in the music, I began to see and feel and experience within the club. Again, I began to understand why I had to make that change from one doorman to 14 inside to a total of 18. And I think that if we as a community can begin to look at the mechanisms, if we can begin to look at the TV, if we can begin to look at the computer, if we can begin to look at the movies, we have to begin to look at the message. And then if we as a people can come together and begin to educate, we have to begin to educate the young people in terms of why and what is happening. And then we have to become conscious and become aware and hopefully start a movement where we can become to bring about and make influences on those mechanisms which I basically have just talked about. If we can use the same mechanisms that have destroyed us, use those same mechanisms to revitalize us. And that's the goal, and that's the mission, is to use those same mechanisms to change. If we can change the mindset of the masses, we can change the course of history. And I think that we can do that.